Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest Kim Chestney, and she's here today to share with us her new book, Radical Intuition, a revolutionary guide to using your inner power. Now, wouldn't you like to cultivate an extraordinary life? Today's discussion will explore how to do just that and discover higher awareness with the power of intuition, which is a revolutionary force at the threshold of a new era of consciousness. So our special guest today, Kim Chestney, is an author, a global recognized innovation leader, and the founder of Intuition Lab. Her work has been featured or supported by leading-edge organizations including South by Southwest, Carnegie Mellon University, Comcast, and Hewlett-Packard. So let's welcome to the show, Kim Chestney.
Hi, Marianne.
Hello, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. Congratulations. I mean, it was just released.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited. Oh, I'm so glad to be here. This is great.
So why don't you share with us, okay, so what got you into even writing this book? I mean, I just love this book.
Well, this has been a long time coming. I've had a passion for intuition since I was very young. And, my first book came out like 15 years ago. And since then, I've been really researching and exploring and experimenting. And, I set up this lab sort of to really understand the deeper aspects of intuition and what it really means in our life in terms of really all aspects of our understanding and information processing, all of that really good stuff that we've kind of neglected for a really long time.
Well, I love how you start off the book. It's such an empowering book. You talk about how you are made for something more.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love for you to share on that.
Mm-hmm. And, this really goes back to this fundamental idea of, we're beings that have two parts of our nature. We have this intuitive side, this creative side, this visionary side, and then we have our intellectual side, our intelligent side, with information processing. And for years and decades, centuries even, we have been so focused on getting smart, which is really important. It's really important to be smart. We've done really great things in this world being smart, but we sort of forgot about this other side of our nature and this other side of our being. You hear all the stuff in schools of, we're not teaching the arts, we're not teaching music and humanities. All of this stuff is really connected with our intuitive side, but it's so much more than that. I'm an artist, so I really have been able to relate to this my whole life. Intuition is really like this giant part of our being that's just waiting to kind of explode and explore and kind of become something more. So when I'm talking about this idea of you are made for something more, we're made to be more than smart. We're made to be intelligent, and we're made to be genius, and we're made to be creative and visionary. And so many of us have just started to tap that potential, just started to kind of feel what we're capable of. So this book is really about touching into that untapped part of our nature, that intuitive side that a lot of us have even been told doesn't even exist, like it's not even real. And then once you get in, you start to experience this magic. It's a very hands-on book. We go in, we have exercises, I'm sure you know from doing it, ways to actually get in there and start activating your intuition and working with it. And you really realize you can do these things that the world has told you is impossible, things that aren't real, really truly are part of our innate potential.
I mean, how many of us have been told, you're not a good enough artist, or
Right.
You're not smart enough to be a doctor, or there's no way you're going to be able to do X, Y, Z, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt like your book really gives people permission to follow their intuition and follow their heart in many ways and go, do you know what? I can do these things.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because, really part of this understanding of insightfulness and really listening from the inside is that each of us have different callings in our life. And these callings that we feel, these really are the callings of our intuition. We can go through the motions and, our parents can say, you should be a doctor or you should be a lawyer. And we can do what the world thinks we should do, or we can listen to what life is calling us to do, like what we've been built to do, what our innate sensibilities are made for, right? So each of us, if we listen, really close, if we listen to the kind of things that we've been drawn to, the things that have called out to us all through our lives, this is what we're meant to do. This is how we're meant to serve in this world in the best possible way. So listening to those callings is so important, and living them, right? Because that's how we start to live up to these things that all the naysayers in the world is, you can't do this, you can't do that. But the reality is only we know what we can do. I mean, how many stories have we heard from people who've made it big and done all these things, and everyone told them they could never do it. But a part of them deep inside knew they could, or they wouldn't have kept at it, right?
Yeah.
So that's that secret, is we really have to trust ourselves, get into that place of trusting ourselves instead of that voice from the outside world, that conditioned voice that's telling us, who we really are, when we know inside the truth.
So why don't you share with us about the title Radical Intuition?
Mm-hmm.
What's that about, and why is this so revolutionary?
Yeah, I mean, and we struggle. We're like, how do we wrap this up? How do we help people to understand, what we mean by intuition? Because, intuition has, there's been so much confusion about what it is throughout the years. And, it's got a bad rap in a lot of ways, because people just simply associate it with, woo stuff, which, that's great. That's a part of intuition, but intuition's so much more than that. So we really wanted people to understand this is a radical way of looking at intuition. We don't just look at intuition as, psychic powers, or having the ability to, know things that we could never know with our thinking mind, although it is that, but it's more than that. It applies to every single part of our life. And we start to learn to think intuitively in every moment. And we learn what that is, which is really essentially thinking with our intuition first, and then letting our mind kind of put it together and help us to sort it out. When we train ourselves to start thinking intuitively every day, our whole life can change, because we start to live really aligned with our true being and our true self. And that's, living our truth is what they call it. So, having this process getting activated within us, when we turn to our intuition, it really is a new way of living and a new way of thinking. And it becomes revolutionary, because no longer can you just live that life that the world has mapped out for you, or suffer through those things that, everyone said, you just need to, be quiet and, listen and to what the world is saying. You're like, no, this isn't right. I'm going to stand up for it. No, this is something that I love. I'm going to go do it. And I'm going to listen to myself, and I'm going to trust myself. So it's a really revolutionary way of living your life.
Well, thanks for taking the time to break that down, because I felt it was so important. People had to hear that,
Mm-hmm.
And often you hear people where, maybe they get hung up on the word intuition, but they're okay with following their gut. And
Yes.
it's interesting, just
Mm-hmm.
how words can matter so much.
Mm-hmm. So true. Yeah. And that was one of the things that, I talk about in the book, is one of the reasons why there's so much confusion about intuition and what it really is because, we've really never had a really comprehensive word that really embodies all of the things that we use. So we say we're going with our gut, or, we say we just, we have a knowing, or we just knew something. And there's just so many different terms that mean so many different things. So I'm really hoping that the more people start to use this word, the more they, really can get comfortable with it as just a natural part of our cognitive process. It's really simply that.
Yeah, it really is part of our everyday function.
Mm-hmm.
Because, how many of us have gotten this feeling, and do like air quotes on feeling, that, I probably shouldn't go that way today. And only to learn later at the same time, there's a massive car accident,
Yes. Absolutely. And it really comes a lot in terms of those feelings and those knowings, right? Sometimes you just know things. Sometimes you just feel things. It can be something that's cerebral, or it can be something that's emotional, but there's these different ways that your intuition speaks to you and moves you, and, learning to understand and differentiate, those thoughts and feelings from the mind, the conditioned mind. Because, that's the problem. We spend most of our days and working in the mind, in the conditioned mind, and in our critical mind, right, telling us all of these things. And when we start to be able to sort out those different voices in our head and really tune in to that true, still abiding voice, of our real self and our higher intuition, that's when we start to really gain the ability to do extraordinary things. That's when scientists have these wonderful breakthroughs, and artists get into the creative flow, and we live our lives our best lives. You know what I mean?
Yeah, our best potential, which, everyone really wants to do. And my goodness, we're in this very unique time in history where people are, in a place where they can work on these kind of things.
Mm-hmm. that's definitely the bonus for what we're going through right now. I mean, it's a really, really trying time for so many of us. And, I think the silver lining here that we have to focus on is our ability to take this time to turn within. And I personally feel like that's the message, in my life when I'm going through, is this is an opportunity for me to realize how much of that outside world and that chaos and all of the things that are happening, are really just a distraction from this true journey that I need to take inside me to understand what it all means and how it all fits together and how I can serve to make this world better in my own way, right? I think each of us can have that dialogue with ourselves.
Yeah, and really kind of sit and figure out, what it is that we, just figure out that connection. And I think a lot of times people have gone, you know what, I don't believe it, but
Right.
it works, either way
Right.
it works.
Right. And that's the thing about intuition. I've worked with so many people who were skeptical, including my husband. My husband was the most skeptical person you'd ever meet. He's in computers, cybersecurity. He's as intellectual as they come. And it only took really living with me for not very long before he realized, wow, this is amazing. Like, I can do my job better using intuition, right? So all you have to do is really go through and practice it and experience it for yourself. And suddenly you'll realize that, oh my gosh, like, this works. It's one thing to hear other people talk about it. And that's the good thing about this book, because it really gives you these tools so you can go through and see for yourself and experience for yourself. Like, don't take it from me, take it into your life and try it out. And when it works, and you'll be like, wow, okay, so this is something I can use. This is something that can help me and serve me and really uplift me ultimately.
I think a lot of times when people think about using their intuition, they don't necessarily think it's a skill that they can use at work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sure everyone's going, wait a minute, how can I do that?
Yeah. And that's really where this was born. Honestly, the idea for radical intuition came out of my job, because I worked in tech for almost 20 years. I've been in tech, and I have worked with pretty much all of the big innovation companies all around the world with what I've been working on in the creative industries and with art and technology and things like that. So as I'm working with these designers, we're talking like people who are the smartest people around, like the smartest people, biggest degrees. And all of a sudden I go into these rooms and we're having brainstorming sessions and people are talking about intuition. And, my first book had already come out at this point, and I'm like, wait a second, these are technology people and we're having conversations about intuition. What is this all about? This must be explored. So that was, what got this whole thing started, maybe 10 years ago. And I realized at that point that intuition is it's applicable to, our personal lives, our spiritual lives, but also our business lives and our creative lives and our practical lives in so many ways. So, in technology, I always say that intuition has become the holy grail, because, we've gotten to the point where there's all this data, machines are so smart, computers can do everything. What is it now? What is the secret sauce and the magic that differentiates the good product from the great product, the really successful business from the business that's keeping up with everybody else? And the answer to that is intuition. It is the core of innovation and creativity. All of that is intuition. So harnessing that and listening and developing your products and your businesses and your services based on that is really a magical way to grow your business and succeed.
So why don't you share with us the 4 different types of intuition and tell us just a little bit about each one?
Yeah. So, part of this process of really understanding intuition, I was trying to figure out, how to understand its, the different facets of its basic nature. And during this process, I stumbled onto, Jung's Myers-Briggs and his cognitive functions. And I started to realize that, because of course he was a huge advocate of intuition, as were many, many really, successful people throughout history. And so I started looking at them, and really it kind of came to me as they are sort of a framework for how we use intuition in our daily life. So looking at them in terms of our body, our 4 elements of being: our body, our minds, our hearts, and our spirit, or our eternal nature, of the ephemeral parts of ourselves, looking at those 4 sort of elements and understanding them each as their own pathway for intuition to communicate with us, to help us to receive information, sort of like, we plug into a cloud. The way I always envision it is, we look at all of the world, all the data, everything that's ever happened in the world, will happen in the world, is happening right now. It's all data. It's out there around us, not far away, within us, all around us. And we have the ability through our intuition. It's sort of like the antenna or the cable that connects us with that cloud of information that's everywhere. So when we, tap into our intuition, when we use that sort of higher pathway, it can communicate with us. It brings that information down and shares it through sensations with our body, through our thoughts in our minds, our feelings, our emotions, and ultimately, our experience of being in life itself. A lot of time people have metaphysical or spiritual experiences around their intuition as well. So in these many different ways, each person, based on their individual sensibilities, are more sensitive to different pathways. Some people are, really, really, their bodies speak to them a lot. Like, for instance, every day, our bodies are speaking to us all the time. Like when you go into the refrigerator and you try to decide what to eat, your body kind of tells you, this is something that appeals to me. This is something that doesn't. And we can listen to it or we can not listen to it, which a lot of times we don't. And that's really sort of one of the core disparities in, our diets today. As we listen to what we crave, we don't listen to what our intuition tells us that we should have. So starting to think with our intuition and listen to the way our body, makes us feel or kind of moves us is really important. A lot of people, if you are sort of a mindful intuition person, then you'll get like knowing. You'll just know, like you said earlier, if I just know I shouldn't go to work this one way for some reason. I don't know why, but I know. And then when you follow that, you learn like, okay, so I knew something and there was a reason. Part of me knew there was an accident over there because all that data is out there. It's all just ones and zeros, information out there that my higher self can access, and it knew. So I had a knowing. It really isn't something for people to be afraid of, or like this, really deeply mystical process that's like has to be looked at as magical or obscure. It's really more of a just an understanding and acceptance that there's part of information that a different part of our brains can access. So, so that's basically.
I love that. That's so important, because a lot of times people kind of get a little hung up on some, they get hung up on some of the wording, not realizing how imperative it is to have this kind of information just for your daily lives, your work,
yes.
Personal, everything.
Exactly. And with time, with practice, you can kind of figure out what type of intuition you work best with. And in the book, we actually have a little intuition affinity quiz you can take to see, am I naturally like a creative intuitive? Am I mindful intuitive? Or am I physical intuitive? Right. And then you can kind of see like, the jobs that go along with that, and the hobbies and the interests that just naturally flow from being, astute at a certain type of intuition. Even though you can develop them all. You can develop all of them ultimately.
That's pretty impressive. I really felt that your book helps people who, maybe are not looking for like the woo-woo book on intuition, right, which I felt was really helpful, because you really get into a lot of the practicalities of it, and also into mindfulness, potential living. And then you hit, which most people, which I found just fascinating, is quantum consciousness. And I think a lot of people are like, wow, that just blew my mind just hearing that, So why don't you share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah. It kind of blew my mind too when I was writing the book, because all this stuff really unfolded. A lot of it unfolded intuitively for me, during the writing process and the discovery process. So, when all that started coming together and it really clicked, I was like, it's really true. The fact that we've been living in this Newtonian world where we think, A plus B equals C. And we're all just trained to think that's the way it is. And, and we're realizing in physics, like all of this intuition stuff is paralleling this rise in this new physics and this new quantum understanding of the world. So it's no surprise that right now, a book like Radical Intuition is coming to the forefront, because now we're realizing that A plus B doesn't always just equal C. You can have A plus B and it can take you straight to Z. It's possible to have that instant knowing and that instant understanding without having to go through all of the pros and cons and thinking. And, Einstein said in so many cases that like, he'll just, the answer just comes to him, wakes up in the middle of the night and he had the answer. It just came to him. even though he struggled with formulas, for years. So that kind of metaphor, it works in our life in a simple way. Like, instead of trying to decide, like, what job to take or what partner to be with, we starting to get into that place where we have that knowing, and we make the decision based on our knowing or our feeling, not so much on those pros and cons and like the rationale of the mind. And so the quantum part is just so fascinating. And it really teaches us to, once we start to accept that we can quantum think in a different way, and then that's normal. That's not something weird. It's not something spooky. It's how we're made. Our brains have all this stuff up there that isn't being used. Why do you think? Because it has this potential to do these things.
Yeah, it's something that's been a part of us. We're just now beginning to understand it.
Exactly. 100%.
Is that why you think society right now is going through like this really big intuitive revolution? It's just because we've got science that's kind of backing up a lot of stuff that maybe Eastern philosophy believed a long time ago?
Absolutely. Seeing it all come together at this moment in time. I mean, it's such a wonderful time to be alive, to see these changes, because it really is, this revolution that's happening right more on just a personal level. It's a global level, because we've come to a place as a people, and you see all the social justice movement, all the things happening, all the rights that we're asking for around the world, because this is the time where, we're making this shift, where we're waking up, right? And when you start to wake up, to make this shift where you elevate your consciousness so you can see things from a higher perspective, so you can have empathy, and you can, care about your impact on the world. When all these things start to happen, then naturally change has to come. We have to start treating each other better. We have to love each other better. We have to love our planet. All of these things are part of this process of the expansion of consciousness of the human race, and intuition is part of that. It's our connection to that higher knowing and that higher wisdom that connects us all and unites us all, instead of the divisive mind that separates us all and keeps us down and holds us back.
So if there are people out there that go, okay, I need this like yesterday. Is there a way that they can like jumpstart their intuition, or is it something that they have to take really baby steps with? Oh, you just answered it. Okay.
yes, and yes. So there's so many different ways that we can really have this sort of awakening. That's what it comes down to. Eckhart Tolle is someone who talks a lot about awakening and mindfulness, and the mindfulness movement has been, so critical in really opening our eyes, a lot of the world, to what's happening and living in this moment, and making space when the world is crazy and insane, and just pulling back from it and finding that space. And that, to me, has been really what has laid the groundwork for what I'm calling a practice of insightfulness, which I feel comes after we get into this mindful place. So after we slow down and we turn off the world, when we just remind ourselves that we need to take that time to go within and find that stillness and that presence. Well, what happens when we get into that stillness? That's where our intuition speaks. The silence, in that silence is where intuition speaks to us. So it's so important at this time for us to simply slow down. So if you want to do something right now to start using your intuition, just stop doing stuff. The first thing you need to do is just open space for it to speak to you, because it wants to talk to you. It's been talking to you every day of your life. You've probably heard it here and there. You've had little experiences, these little calling cards of intuition all throughout your life. It's there, and it wants you to know it's there. And the way for it to come to you more is just to be still. And in that stillness, whether you're meditating, whether you're taking a bath, whether you're taking a walk in the woods, any time that you can just slow down and turn off all of that craziness. And what do we need to do more now than turn that off? Stop watching the news for a little bit, just turn that off.
Yeah, please turn it off.
Turn it off for a little bit. Yeah.
I think our soul will thank us for that later, right?
Exactly. Your soul will thank you. Turn it off, and then just kind of go into that space. And that's where that open space and that gap between all that craziness, that's where your intuition starts to come in. And the more that you go into that, then the clearer and stronger and the more often it will start to come to you. So it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. You can have that instant experience with your intuition if you can open up to it, or you can just gradually, take it step by step. And either way, it will grow stronger, because that's what it hopes for us. It's been hoping our whole lives that we'll start to listen.
Well, so now I'm going to put you on the hot seat, okay?
Okay.
So,
I'm ready.
So I know you're ready. So is there like an exercise you can walk us through on opening our intuition? Because, maybe some people are going, gosh, I'm not even sure where to start.
Heck yeah. I have so many exercises. So we can do, I'm thinking, so if you want to do a little, we do little intuition activation meditations in the book, and I offer some in my online courses to just kind of jumpstart your intuition. Or we could also do an exercise right now where you practice using your intuition to solve a problem, and we can kind of just show you how you can just start using it, like right now, just when we get off the phone. Anything that comes up, you can use some of these practices to just start using intuition right now.
Well, I'll let you choose, because they both sound fabulous. I could do both.
Okay. All right. So since we were talking about quantum intuition and quantum thinking, let's do my through the wormhole practice. Now, I don't know if you had a chance to do it. We have a version of it in the book, but it's also really fun to do it live so we can talk it through.
Awesome.
So, all right. So you want to do it with me?
Sure.
All right. So that's the thing about intuition, it's like we've got to do that together. All right. So what this practice does, and I love this. This is one of my favorite practices for people just starting to use their intuition. And what it does is it shows you how to make a decision, like a quick decision like that, like we were talking about earlier. And you want, instead of going from A to Z with A plus B plus C plus D plus E, we're going to go straight from A to Z. Okay. So we're going to go through the wormhole, and we're going to get an instant answer from our intuition. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Okay, so all you need to do is start, and anybody out there listening, you can do this right along with us. It's really simple. You can do it anywhere you are. You don't have to sit down and light candles and look in your crystal ball or anything. You can do it anywhere you are, driving in your car. Just don't like not pay attention and crash or anything. Just imagine think of two things that you're choosing between. Something in your life, anything, a choice that you're making. It could be where to go on vacation. It could be shoes you want to buy. It could be a partner that if you're not sure of, anything you're not sure of, and the deepest, most life-changing things, or even the simplest, most practical, works for either. Okay, so just kind of think of that in your head. Do you have your two things?
Yes.
Okay. So now in your mind's eye, take a deep breath, because we always want to get into a good headspace with our intuition. Typically, if you really want to, get into a good space, I'd say just take a few deep breaths and smile. Smile is the number one way to instantly uplift your energy so that you can connect with the higher good information that intuition wants to bring through. So just take a deep breath and give yourself a big smile, and imagine on one side, to the left, imagine a symbol that represents one choice, and then on the right side of your field of vision, imagine a symbol that represents your other choice. Can be any kind of symbol, just so you can differentiate between the two things. You got that?
Yes, I got that.
Okay. All right. So now in that field of vision, just kind of be with it in this moment. Just close your eyes, and I'll give you a second. I'll give everyone out there listening a second to just be with them, and then see how each of those symbols interact with you. Put your attention on one symbol and see what it does. Then put your intention on the other symbol and see what it does. Does one of the symbols grow bigger and stronger, or move in fast ways, while one would shrivel, or one would get smaller or move back? So just close your eyes and see if one of those symbols starts to resonate more with you.
Got it.
Okay, see? And boom, that's how it should be. All right. So do you want to share yours, or do you want me to share a story?
Sure.
Right.
I'll share a little bit, and I'd love to hear a story too. So I have been contemplating getting a dog or not at
Perfect.
this time. I know, because it's a commitment, they're there for 13 to whatever years, so it's a commitment. And so I've been kind of weighing this. It's like, and it was interesting when you talked about the symbols. The symbol lit up
Ah,
for me to hold off right now. So
perfect.
I'm like, okay, because,
Yep.
of course everyone wants to go out and get all the puppies,
Mm-hmm.
So
I love
that's
that.
maybe.
That's
Mhm.
and the lit up. I've never heard anybody say that before, but that's a great one, right? So that one lit up, and that one it drew your attention to that, and it gave you that information, even though it wasn't necessarily what you wanted to hear, right? Because you might want to go out and get those puppies,
Oh, who doesn't want to get a puppy, right?
right? Exactly, and that really indicates to me that it's really validates that it's authentic because your intuition isn't going to just tell you what you want to hear. That's the thing. True intuition is going to just tell you the truth. It's not going to tell you what you want to hear or what you don't want to hear or whatever. It's just going to tell you the truth. So getting into that space of acceptance and saying, whatever the outcome, I'm just going to accept whatever comes here is really important. So I love that. And I love that it happens so quickly because that's the thing with intuition. It happens instantaneously. And that's when I say through the wormhole, because it's like boom, boom. If you're sitting and you're waiting and you're thinking, that usually indicates your mind's trying to make a decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah, kind of work. And it's interesting because you can just kind of let everything go and it just comes to you.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And that's why it's so easy. That's why I said intuition is the most wonderful. It's like, thank you, intuition, because you don't have to work for it. You don't have to get 10,000 degrees. All you have to do is learn to open up and receive it. It's the most natural, simplest way of knowing. It's
Well,
wonderful.
oh my gosh. Well, thank you for walking us through that. I appreciate it. I'm sure the dog I'll get someday will appreciate it too.
Exactly.
So, why don't you share with us the story that you had intended to share? I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Well, the first time I did that exercise was with, a friend of mine that I was working with, and she was having analysis paralysis. So this is a really good cure for that. She had had a job offer, a really good job offer that she was thinking about taking, but she also really liked the job that she was at, and she just couldn't. She called me. She was in tears. She's like, I can't decide. Kim, you have to help me with my intuition. Like, I can't decide. It's like, great, you've come to the right place. We're going to do this. So, she made this in her mind's eye. She made two trees, and one was like a colored tree, and one was like a different colored trees to differentiate them because it was her growth, right? Am I going to grow here? Or I'm going to grow here. And she went into the space, and one of the trees shriveled up and died, and the other tree grew in her imagination. It just grew and was like really like abundant. And I said to her, "So which tree was growing?" And she said, "The tree for the choice I didn't want to make." And for me, that resonated so deeply with this analysis paralysis because I think so often we get into that place because our intuition is telling us to make a choice, but it's a hard choice or it's a choice that's going to get us out of our comfort zone. Because in her case, the choice was to move and take this new job and start this new life. And that was scary. And though it was really exciting, it was also scary and she was afraid and she didn't want to make that choice. But she did. She listened to her intuition and she went in the next day and she took that job and she moved and she is like, I'm so much happier. I'm so glad that I did this, even though I was afraid. And that's just an example of how our intuition can like click with us, right? And it can tell us these things and get us through these little blocks we have because we're afraid or because we have some sort of resistance to making a choice. Or in your case, because, you had an idea of something that felt good and, who doesn't love puppies, right? But, it let you know that maybe the time is not right now, so it can really help us that way, very practically.
Oh, I thought your book had lots of great practical, exercises for people and information and advice. Kim, my goodness, we could talk forever. Where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about radical intuition?
Yes. So on my website, I also have a free intuition awakening guide on my website that you can start using that right now with some more practices and kind of going over the fundamentals that, that we talked about today. And then I also have Intuition Lab, which is intuitionlab.com. And my website is kimchestney.com. And Intuition Lab, we offer all kinds of really immersive online courses where if you really want to get into this and practice it, you can work with me personally and you can work with us in groups and we do workshops and it's so much fun. Like intuition work is probably the most fun work you can do.
And I would think it's the most rewarding too, because it's a life skill that you can
Yes.
take with you forever.
Yes. It's like the best of both worlds because you have self-discovery and excitement and all of that stuff really, all in one. So it really is something that, we have such a wonderful time in those classes and workshops. And so I invite anybody to join us. And really, like I said, my whole goal for this book is really just helping people to get more in touch with their own intuition and really start living that way, because it's a really happy way to live your life. That's the end road, is your happiness and your fulfillment.
Yeah. I mean, it's about really that, and having what your book really is all about is being empowered. And that's one of the main reasons I love your book. It's just all about empowerment. Well,
Yep.
Kim, why don't you share with us your website one more time?
My website is Kim Chestney, KimChestney.com.
Well, Kim, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Oh, and Marianne, thank you for having me. This has been such fun talking.
Well, thank you, Kim. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Radical Intuition, a revolutionary guide to using your inner power. Radical Intuition's available Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And of course, it's available on Kindle. You can also get your copy of Radical Intuition at New World Library. Again, if you'd like to connect with Kim, you can at kimchestney.com for more information. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.